You already know why Red Lobster went bankrupt. Everyone does. They got greedy, put out a $20 all-you-can-eat shrimp deal, and America ate them into bankruptcy. Except, almost everything you've heard is wrong. It's a great story. Simple, a little funny, the kind of thing you can picture instantly. A whole country loading up on cheap shrimp until the chain buckled under the weight of it. But that is not what killed a 50-year-old institution with 700 restaurants. What killed Red Lobster was a single decision made a decade earlier, in a room you never saw, by people whose names were never on the menu. The shrimp was the cover story. By the end of this, you'll see exactly how it was done. And once you can see it, you'll start noticing it everywhere. For most of your life, Red Lobster was just there. The cheddar biscuits, the lobster tank by the door, the place you went for a birthday or a graduation, or because it was a Tuesday and someone wanted the shrimp. At its peak, it had more than 700 locations and brought in billions. So when it filed for bankruptcy in 2024, everyone reached for the easiest explanation. The headlines wrote themselves, "Endless Shrimp Ends Red Lobster." Late-night hosts did the jokes, and who wouldn't believe it? It's the perfect villain, a greedy giveaway, hungry customers, a company too dumb to do the math. But that story hides something. A much stranger question. Who owned the buildings? Hold on to that, because the answer is where the real story is. Start with the shrimp, since that's where everyone else stops. In 2023, Red Lobster took its ultimate endless shrimp, something it had run as a limited-time treat for 18 years, and made it permanent at $20. People came, they ate, and the company lost money on it. The shrimp deal lost about $11 million. Sounds catastrophic. Sounds like exactly the kind of number that sinks a company, until you set it next to what was happening quietly in the background. A number the shrimp story is standing directly in front of, so you never look at it. $190 million a year. In rent. Not 11 million once. 190 million every year. On buildings you'd have assumed Red Lobster simply owned, because for most of its life it did. For most of its history, Red Lobster owned its restaurants. The land, the buildings, real valuable assets, hundreds of them across the country. And that ownership was a kind of armor. When a bad year came, the buildings were a cushion. You can borrow against a building. You can sell one. You can ride out a storm when you own the ground you're standing on. Then, in 2014, that changed. The company that owned Red Lobster sold it to a private equity firm called Golden Gate Capital for about $2.1 billion. And here is where you need to watch closely, because what happens next is the whole movie. The very same year they bought it, Golden Gate turned around and sold off almost all of Red Lobster's real estate, more than 500 properties, for about $1.5 billion. So look at what just happened. They paid $2.1 billion for the company, and within the same year, they got $1.5 billion of it back by selling the land out from under the restaurants. Picture buying someone's house and paying for it with the money in their own bank account, then handing them a rent bill to keep living there. That is almost exactly what was done here. Red Lobster was bought using its own buildings, because those buildings still had restaurants in them. Red Lobster still needed them, so now the company had to do something it had never done in its entire history. It had to rent its own restaurants back from the new landlord, and these were not ordinary leases. Red Lobster didn't just pay rent now, it also paid the property taxes, the insurance, the upkeep, nearly everything, on buildings it used to own outright. The leases ran about 25 years, and the rent rose 2% every single year, automatically, forever. Here's the quiet center of this whole story. When you own the building, a bad quarter is survivable. When you rent it on a deal like this, the rent comes due every month no matter what. It only ever climbs, and in a downturn, it becomes a trapdoor. The building was the company's airbag. And in a single transaction, they sold the airbag and kept the money. That rent climbed until it hit $190 million a year, around 10% of everything the company earned. 64 million of it went to restaurants that were already losing money. And the cash that was supposed to protect the company drained from $100 million to under $30 million. in 6 months. That is the real killer. Not a shrimp, a lease. But there's a second twist, and this is where it stops looking like incompetence and starts looking like incentives. Remember the shrimp deal, the money loser someone chose to make permanent. By 2020, the biggest owner of Red Lobster was a company called Thai Union. And Thai Union was not a restaurant company. Thai Union was one of the largest seafood suppliers on earth, the company that sold Red Lobster its shrimp. The people who decided to flood the country with cheap, all-you-can-eat shrimp were owned by the shrimp supplier. In bankruptcy court, Red Lobster's own restructuring chief said so directly. He alleged that Thai Union used its control to push its own product, that Red Lobster dropped its other shrimp suppliers and was left buying from Thai Union alone at higher cost, and that the endless shrimp decision was forced through over other executives' objections, leaving restaurants short on shrimp for days. Thai Union has denied all of it and called the claims meritless. A court will decide who's right. But you can already see the shape of it. Even the shrimp, the one part everyone thought they understood, was never really about hungry customers. It was about who profited from the shrimp. So step back and ask the question this whole story has been circling. If the real causes were a real estate deal and a supplier conflict, why does everyone remember the shrimp? Because the shrimp is the version you can picture. A private equity firm turned owned real estate into an escalating rent bill. Your eyes glaze over before the sentence ends. But greedy people ate all the shrimp. You see that instantly. It's funny, it's tidy, and it hands you a villain you already know how to feel about. That's not an accident. That's the whole trick. The most comforting explanation is the one that keeps your eyes on the plate and off the balance sheet. The shrimp was the magician's other hand, and the trick only works if everyone's watching the wrong hand. So here's the thing to carry out of here. The cover story is almost always the one that's easiest to picture. When a company mysteriously dies, the reason you're handed is the reason that's simple to draw. The real reason is usually a document nobody filmed. Here's how it ended. In May of 2024, Red Lobster filed for bankruptcy, more than $1 billion in debt. It had already gone dark on 99 restaurants. In the end, around 130 closed, roughly 1 in 5. Thousands of people lost their jobs, many of them, according to later complaints, with no warning at all. They found out the place was closing when they showed up for a shift, and the firm that set it all in motion, Golden Gate, the one that bought the company and sold the land, had already made its money back years earlier and sold Red Lobster off in 2020. By the time the doors were being locked, they were long gone. The supplier took its loss and walked away. The workers held the bag. Senator Elizabeth Warren watched it happen and said it about as plainly as anyone could. Red Lobster, she said, was killed by endless greed, not endless shrimp. And here's why this should follow you out the door. What happened to Red Lobster was not a Red Lobster thing, it was a machine, and it has run before. Toys R Us, Sears, ShopKo, Payless, different companies, different decades, the same exact move. Bought with borrowed money, the real estate sold off. The company left renting its own stores until the rent ate it alive. And nearly every time, the press found a tidy little reason. The internet killed them, tastes changed. The shrimp that pointed anywhere except at the deal. So here's your lens, the only thing I want you to keep. The next time a company you loved collapses and someone hands you a simple, satisfying reason, don't ask what the customers did wrong. Ask a colder question. Ask who bought it, and ask who sold the building. Because somewhere right now, there is a company you love that already has its own version of the shrimp, a simple story, sitting ready for the day it falls. The next time one of them collapses, they'll hand you that story. It'll be simple, it'll be satisfying, it'll explain everything. That's the moment to start wondering what it's distracting you from. If this changed how you'll read the next headline, subscribe. There are more of these coming.